10-901-0541-670772. Abundant grace in God we trust.
Hello. Today, once again, we are meeting on AGPS TV, presenting to you home economics aspect of BDT. Now, today we are moving straight to our kitchen. That is, we are going to talk about methods of cooking food. We have a lot of methods of cooking food. So today, sit down and get ready for the lesson. Now, when you say cooking food, what is cooking food? We do prepare a lot of food in our homes. But when you say cooking food, what is cooking food? When you say cooking food is a method of applying heat to food to make the food edible and digestible. Method of cooking food is the method of applying heat. To food to make it edible and digestible. So anytime we apply heat to food, that is anything that is solid or liquid, when heat is being applied to it to make it edible and then digestible, that method or that term is termed to be what? Method of cooking food. Now, you'll be thinking about, why do we even prepare food? Why do we cook food, or why do we prepare food? Now, we have so many ways of cooking food. Now, let's look at the reasons why we cook food. Why do you cook food? I know, be thinking of one. You cook food to kill the microorganisms present in the food. We cook food to kill the microorganisms present in the food. So now, when heat is being applied to food, the microorganism present in the food. The last time on our meeting, I told you that bacteria present in the food is called the pathogens. These pathogens present in food, when the food is not being cooked, it causes the food to spoil, causing bad, harmful effects on the body. So when you cook food, and the heat is being applied to the food, it kills the microorganism present in the food. So another reason why we cook food, can you think of any? Very good. It also makes the food soft for us to chew. When food is being cooked, or when heat is being applied to heat, it makes the food soft, and then it also makes it digestible. So these are some of the reasons. Another reason why we cook food is it enhances the food flavor. Meaning, when heat is being applied to food, it enhances the flavor in the food, making the food more tasty and delicious for you to consume. So these are the reasons why we cook food. Now that you know the reasons why we cook food, can you think of any method of applying heat to food? Any way or method of applying heat to food? In home economics, or when you come to home economics aspect of BDT, we have 3 ways of applying heat to food to make it edible and digestible. Now let's look at these 3 ways of applying heat to food. When you look on your screen, you can see that we have 3 mediums, or 3 ways of applying heat to food, or 3 mediums of heat transfer to food. The first one is conduction. We have conduction. Now, the conduction is the way of applying heat to food through a solid contact. Conduction is the method of applying heat to food through a solid object or a solid contact. That is, when I'm having my fire, any source of heat, being it gas or coal pot or any source of heat, there is a medium through which the heat can get to the food, and that is the saucepan being used to prepare the food. You can see on your screen for a simple illustration on how the heat transfer is being done in the conduction of heat transfer. Now, you can see on your screen, this is my source of heat. This is my source of heat. Now, I can see that before the heat can get to the food in the pot, it will pass through a solid contact. That is the saucepan or the pot being set on the fire. So this is the conduction method of heat transfer. Before the heat can get to the food, it has to pass through a medium. That is the saucepan is the medium serving in between the food and then the source of heat. That is my fire. So in the conduction, before heat can be applied to heat, before heat can be applied to food, it will pass through a solid contact. That is a solid medium. And we are using the saucepan or the pot that you are going to use to prepare your food. It is the solid contact serving a medium for the heat to get to the food. That is the conduction heat transfer. Now let's look at our second heat transfer. We have the convection. We have the convection. That medium comprises of the conduction and the convection itself. That is to say, the conduction heat transfer is when heat is being applied to food through a solid contact in a circular motion, heated gases in a circular motion. So that is the same medium, but before the food can get hot or before heat can get to the food in the pot, it will pass through the solid contact, and then in a circular motion it will circulate in the saucepan before it gets to the food. Let me give you a simple example. Now when you cook, when you are cooking or when you are boiling egg, when you put your water in the saucepan and then you put it on fire, you see that before the egg heat or the egg boils up, the water or the liquid substance in the pot will become hot before the hotness gets to the food in the pot. So that is the convection. The convection comprises of the conduction. So it will first heat the saucepan or the pot on fire, and then the liquid substance will also heat up before getting to the food. So before the conduction can take place, the convection can take place, it will first use the conduction method before getting to the convection method. That is the convection heat transfer. Now the last one is radiation. The last one is radiation. How is that method also transferred heat to the food? How is that method also transferred to food? Now you say the radiation method is when heat is being applied to food directly. The radiation, it doesn't use any medium. Heat is being applied to food directly. So for example, if I want to cook my fish, if I want to cook my maize, if I want to cook any food, I won't use any medium, which is the saucepan or the pot. So I will put the food directly on the fire. So in that radiation heat transfer, the food is being placed on the heat directly without going through any medium like that of the conduction and the convection. So the radiation, we place the food on the fire directly. So the heat rays from the heat source or from the fire will get to the food directly without passing through any medium, which is the saucepan or the pot. So these are the three heat transfer through which heat can be applied to food before it's being cooked for you to consume. So if you want to cook or if you want to apply heat, you can use any of these three ways or these three mediums to apply heat to your food. Okay, now that you know the method of heat transfer to food, what are the methods of cooking food? What are the methods of cooking food? We have a lot of methods of cooking food, but in home econs, we've classified them into two groups. we've classified them into two groups. That is, we have the wet method of cooking food and then dry method of cooking food. As you can see on your screen, we have two methods of cooking food. We have the wet or moist method of cooking food and then dry method of cooking food. But under each method of cooking food, we have a lot of examples or a lot of a sub method of cooking food under each. Now, you'll be thinking about what is this wet and dry method of cooking food? What is this moist or dry method of cooking food? Now, the first one, wet or moist method of cooking food. When we come to that aspect of cooking food, it is the method of cooking food whereby the food is cooked in liquid. It's the method of cooking food whereby the food is cooked in liquid or by steam to make the food sticky and watery. The wet method of cooking food is the method of cooking food whereby the food is cooked. So that type of food, the liquid substance is being applied to the food to make the food watery or sticky. That is the wet. Even the name sound wet. When something is wet or moist, liquid is being applied. We can think of a lot of liquid being used in preparing food. We have water, we have juice, we have milk, and a lot of liquid that we use in preparing our food. Now, the second one, the dry method of cooking food. The dry method of cooking food. The dry method of cooking food is a type of method that is when food is cooked directly under heat or in an enclosed space. In an enclosed space. That is the dry method of cooking food. Now, on our today question, they gave us a lot of food method, a lot of method of preparing food to group them under moist and dry method of cooking food. So let's look at our question, how the question was formed. Let's look at how the question was formed, and then we will know how to group them under each method of cooking food. A. Use the underlisted method of cooking to fill the table below and give an example of food cooked by each. I'm repeating it. Use the underlisted method of cooking food to fill the table below and give an example of food cooked by each. So meaning you are going to list, they have given us the method of cooking food. We are going to decide whether this is dry or moist method of cooking food. As I explained the moist and then the dry method of cooking food, using or by going through the definition, you will be able to group the method of cooking food under dry and moist method of cooking food. And after, we are going to give examples of food that can be cooked by the method listed in both the dry and moist method of cooking food. So can you try and identify some dry method of cooking food and the moist method of cooking food? Okay, very good. Now the first one is boiling. Where do you think boiling or for? Moist or dry? Moist or dry? Now, because at the end of boiling, you've boiled something before. Boiling is when you put food on fire using liquid, that is water, to cover the surface of the food to apply heat to it to make the food cook for you to consume. That is the boiling. Now, will boiling fall under dry or moist method of cooking food? Yes, very good. It is moist method of cooking food. So boiling will stand under or come under the moist method of cooking food. Now let's look at our answers on the screen. our answers on the screen. Now, looking at our answers on the screen, we can see that the boiling is a moist method of cooking food. The boiling is a moist method of cooking food. And what are some of the examples of food that can be cooked under boiling? We have a lot of food, and I know that boiling is the commonest method of cooking food that we do apply in the house. Even if you don't know how to boil any food, haven't you boiled water before? Very good. That is boiling. So it comes under boiling. Examples of food that can be cooked under the boiling method is plantain. Plantain. We can boil egg, yam, cassava, and a lot of food that we use the boiling method. Now, on our second point, we have frying. We have frying. Frying also comes under the moist method of cooking food. And what are some of the foods that we can fry? We have donuts. We have fish. We have tatale. We have donuts, and we have fish. All these foods, we do fry them. The next point, we have stewing. We have stewing. Under the stewing, we have palava sauce. We have vegetables. We also have beans. These are some of the examples of food that you can cook under the stewing method of cooking. Now, our next point is steaming. Our next point is steaming. Foods that we can steam are yakayake. Yakayake. We have aboro, tumbani. These are some of the foods that you can steam under the steaming method. The next one is poaching. Poaching. What are some of the foods that you can poach? You can poach egg. You can poach fish. You can poach vegetables. These are some of the foods that you can cook under the poaching method of cooking food. And our last point on the moist method of cooking food is pressure cooking. Is pressure cooking. We under the pressure cooking, foods that you can cook under the pressure cooking is fruit bottling. When I say fruit bottling, now we have a lot of food that we do preserve them. Fruit that we do preserve them by using the bottling method. On our last session, we talked about preserving food, and then we talked about the bottling. When you want to preserve your food by the bottling method, we have to apply pressure cooking. We have to apply pressure cooking. We can also use the meat. We can also cook meat under pressure cooking. When you have a tough meat that you can't use, you don't want to use a lot of time to take for it to cook, make it soft for you to eat or consume. You can also use the pressure cooking. You apply high heat to the food to make it soft for you to consume. Beans. You know that beans take a lot of time for it to cook. We can boil beans under the boiling method, but under the pressure cooking, we can also use it for beans to speed up the cooking hours in boiling or cooking the beans. So these are some of the methods of cooking food under wet or moist method of cooking food. You can see that from your screen. All the examples of food being listed there at the end, we have a liquid substance in the food, and the food also become watery and then sticky. The food become watery and sticky. Now let's go to our dry method of cooking food. Our dry method of cooking food. We say that the dry method of cooking food is the method of cooking food whereby the food is cooked under heat or in a heated enclosed area or space. So that is, you can talk of the baking. Before you bake, you know that you have to heat your oven before you place anything that you want to bake in. That is another example of drying method of cooking food. Baking. What are some of the foods that you can bake? I know you know a lot of foods that you can bake. We have meat pie, we have bread, and we have a lot of cakes that you can bake. Sponge cake, queen's cake, and there are a lot of cake that you know. These are some of the examples of food that you can cook using the baking method as a dry method of cooking food. Our next dry method is grilling. Our next dry method is grilling. Now on the grilling, what are some of the foods that we can grill? We have fish, we have yam, we have corn, we have cocoyam, and a lot of foods that you can cook using the grilling method. Okay, now let's move on to our next dry method. We have the microwave cooking. Microwave cooking. Foods that you can cook under the microwave. We have all the vegetables that you know, and rice. So these are some of the foods that you can cook under the microwave method of cooking food. That is under the dry method. The last one on the dry method is roasting. The last one is roasting. Examples of food that you can roast: we have meat, we have fish, and we have granuts. These are some of the examples of food that you can also cook under the roasting method of cooking food. So looking on your screen, as we explained the moist and dry method of cooking food, you can see that from your screen we have separated the moist method and then the dry method of cooking food. And then aside too, we have given you some examples of foods that you can cook under each method of cooking food. Under each method of cooking food. So if you come by using a method of cooking food on the type of food that you are going to cook, you have to check if you can use any of these methods to prepare your food. Now, not only one food can be cooked by one method. We have a lot of food that can use more than one method to prepare. Let's take egg for example. You can boil egg. At the same after boiling the egg, you can still fry the boiled egg. So there, in preparing my egg, I have used how many methods? Good. I have used 2 methods in preparing my food. So it's not that you are going to use only one method in preparing your food. We have foods that you can use more than one method in preparing that food. As I gave you example, like the egg. We have a lot of foods. Some foods you do fry them before you stew them. We have food that you do poach them before you can also apply pressure cooker to it. We have food that you can steam them after you apply different methods to it. So food can be cooked going through one method or more than one method of cooking food. Now let's move on to our next question. That is the 3B. It states that we should explain what nutrients are. We should explain what nutrients are. B, explain the term nutrient. Explain the term nutrient. Before we try to explain this nutrient, can you think of anything that you can find this nutrient in? Where can you find this nutrient? Can you find them in chair? Can you find them on our walls? Where can you find this nutrient? Very good. We can find this nutrient in our food. These nutrients are responsible for building our body. These nutrients are responsible for nourishing our body. These nutrients are responsible for all the changes that we experience in our body. So what are these nutrients? Since they are very vital to our body and our life, what are these nutrients? When you say nutrients, nutrients are chemical substances found in food which helps the body to function properly. Nutrients are chemical substances found in food which helps the body to function properly. Very good. As I said earlier on, nutrients are chemical substances that are found in our daily food that we do consume. So any food that you take in, we have a certain nutrient present in the food. We have a certain nutrient, although we cannot see with our eyes, but they are working on the food, which when taken in, perform a lot of functions in our body. They help our hair to grow. They help our nails to grow. They help our body to increase in height and then in size. They do a lot, or they perform a lot of functions in our body. So can you think of any nutrient that you know or you've heard of before? Okay, I know you are going to mention protein, because protein is one of the nutrients that we always need in our daily food. We have a lot of nutrients that they are present in our food. So let's try to list some of these nutrients. We have protein, we have carbohydrates, we also have vitamins, we have minerals, and we have a lot of nutrients present in our food. So I'm going to give you some of the nutrients and the food that you can find these nutrients in. The food that you can find these nutrients in. So one, the first thing you can see that we have food nutrients, and on your other hand, we have examples of food, meaning examples of food that these proteins or these nutrients can be found in. The first one, let's take protein. Protein. We have protein, and what are some of the foods that you can find protein? We have a lot of foods that we can find protein in. Now, the protein can be found in two sides of food. We have animals protein and plant protein. So as you can see on your screen, on the protein, we have two examples of protein. We have the plant protein and animals protein. What are these plant proteins and animals protein that we are talking about? Now, protein is being divided into two, as I said. The plant protein are the examples of protein that can be found in plants. The plant protein are the examples of protein foods that can be found in plants. We have beans, we have granules, we have peas, we have cowpeas. These are some of the plant protein of foods that protein can be found. Let's go to the animals protein. The animals protein are examples of protein foods that can be found in the protein or in the animals food. Example, we have meat, we have chicken, we have egg, and a lot of animal foods that protein can be found in. Now, protein performs a lot or have a lot of functions on our body, but on our daily basis, the percentage of protein that we do take in is very small. So now that you know examples of food that protein can be found in, try to eat as much as protein food to enable you for the protein to function properly in your system or in your body, because protein perform a lot of functions in our body. Now let's go to our next food nutrient. We have carbohydrates. We have carbohydrates. These carbohydrates foods are the starchy foods that we do take in. They are the starchy foods. And what are these starchy foods? We have examples are cassava, plantain, maize, potato. We also have rice. These are the starchy foods that protein carbohydrates can be found in. So if you want to increase the carbohydrate percentage in your system, these are some of the foods that you should take in. But mind you, if you take in excess of carbohydrate, we have its consequences. As you know, too much of taking in everything is bad. So we don't have to take in too much of carbohydrate, but it's good to take in more protein than carbohydrate, since carbohydrate takes a longer period before it digests. So you should always take in more protein than carbohydrate foods. Our next nutrient is vitamins. Vitamins. The vitamin consists of the vegetables and then the fruits and the vegetables. All vitamin nutrients are found in vegetables and in fruit. So you can name a lot of fruits. You can also name a lot of vegetables that vitamins can be found in. What are examples of food that vitamins can be found in? We have orange, we have pawpaw, we have mango, we have apples, all the fruits that you know. All the fruit that you know, vitamins are present in it. And vegetables too, we have carrots, we have lettuce, we have cabbage, we have cucumber, and a lot of vegetables that vitamins are present in. So I also advise you to take in more vitamins foods. That is the vegetables and then the fruit, because they perform a lot of functions in our system. Our last nutrient is fats and oil. And the fats and oil, we have shea butter, we have margarine, we have palm oil, and all the oily foods. And all the oily foods contains the nutrient fat and oil. So these are the nutrients and foods that you can find these nutrients in. So if a doctor has prescribed you to take in more protein foods or carbohydrate foods, vitamins foods, fat and oil foods, now you know the examples of foods that you can find or get this nutrient from, as you can see on your screen. So do try to take in the nutrient, but do not exceed the excess of taking in this nutrient. Before I go, I would like to write some questions on the board, some food. You try to find the method of preparing this food, and then you send it through the comment view. You send your answers through the comment view. So I'm going to write these questions. I write the examples of food on the board, and then you try to write the answers, the method of food used to prepare these foods that is being listed on the board, and send the answers through the comments view. I'll view it and send whether you are correct, or I'll try to comment on it too. So you too try to send your answers through the comment view. So the examples of foods on the board. Try to find the method of preparing this food. We have ofam, we have momoy, we have tumbani, and then you have rice. If this food can take more than one method, list all the methods to prepare this food. I'll try to send your answers through the comment view, and I'll also try to give you feedback. This is where we are going to end for today. See you on our next meeting. But try to always watch the AGPS TV, and try to also call your friend to subscribe the icon. So we are going to end here for today. See you on our next meeting. Bye.
Abundant Grace International School, we are located right in Obuasi, precisely Bdt-Home. The school has a number of facilities that aid in learning. We have qualified and trained teachers who are ready and willing to assist the children. The school has many facilities such as the ICT laboratory, We also have a science laboratory. We also have a library. The school has a number of buses which convey the children from their various destinations to the school premises. We have the football team, we have the drama group, we have a lot, and the school is based on the Christian principles. For more inquiries, you can call this number 0541 310 901 0541 670772. Abundant grace, in God we trust.